Hello again. Happy Friday to you. Hope you're getting set for a great weekend. Welcome back to the Bernie Miklasz Show here on my YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Please hit the like button. Please feel free to leave your comments. All of that is very much appreciated. We haven't talked about Nolan Arenado and the situation with the Cardinals for a while. So I'm not going to say there's news, but I will say that there's information. And maybe you have heard it, maybe you have not, but I will provide it and then talk about it a little bit. And after that, wait and see if anything comes out of this. Anyway, we all know that a big part of the Cardinals' confidence or their ability to trade Nolan Arenado, a lot of it, if not just about all of it, depends on Alex Bregman, the top third baseman on the free agent market, who, of course, was a star for the Houston Astros, and he rejected a 6-year, $156 million contract offer pitched by the Astros. And when he rejected that, the Astros immediately pivoted to the Cardinals in the talks for Nolan Arenado. And as we know, Arenado vetoed the trade. So then everything went back to the beginning. Arenado still in St. Louis, has a no trade clause. Astros out of the picture for him. Okay, who are the other candidates? All right, as we know, the Boston Red Sox have been the most speculated candidate, but the Boston Red Sox are also in the Alex Bregman hunt, if you will. I don't know. Nobody has reported, not even the Boston people who cover the team. No one has reported anything concrete about where that stands or like how much the Red Sox are willing to offer. But if the Red Sox were willing to offer more than what Bregman was pitched by the Astros, I would think the deal would be done by now. But you never know. Scott Boras is his agent, and Scott does not hesitate to keep his clients out there all winter, even into spring training before signing. So who knows? My gosh, the Dodgers are signing everybody. So would anybody be really shocked that they don't really need Alex Bregman? But would anybody be really shocked if somehow the Dodgers at the end swoop in? What the heck, Anyway, so there's always a chance of a surprise, but obviously the market for Bregman. There are teams interested. Certainly the Tigers are, the Red Sox are, I don't know about the Phillies. I'm not going to get into all that. We know the Red Sox are and the Tigers are. Some people have said maybe Seattle's interested, and they sure need a third baseman. But whoever's interested, no one has presented the number, the years and the number as far as money that Scott Boras is willing to accept for his client or what the client's willing to accept. But when you hire Scott Boras, you basically let Scott Boras run everything, right? So a new development or new information comes out of Houston. Again, you may have heard this. I'm not trying to be redundant, but it's just stuff to talk about. It's okay to talk about it because it is pertinent to the probability or lack thereof of the Cardinals trading Nolan Arenado. So Chandler Rome, who covers the Astros for The Athletic and does a really good job, there were some reports circulating this week that, hey, Bregman could go back to the Astros after all. Jose Altuve and some of their other veteran players have really been lobbying the owner of the Astros, Jim Crane. They've been pretty aggressive. I mean, Altuve in particular has stressed to the general manager there and the owner of the team, who will make the final call, how important Bregman has been to the culture of the franchise, the winning culture, his leadership, and how he is a revered player there in the clubhouse. And he represents what the Astros still want to be competitively in terms of success in the future moving forward. And Altuve doesn't have many years left. So, and he's not the only one. So the players have been just saying to Jim Crane, listen, man, try to get this done. We really want him. We really need him. So we'll see what happens. But Chandler Rome, again, of The Athletic, he followed up on this speculation with some information. Quote, this is from what he wrote, quote, the team's longstanding offer to Bregman remains on the table, one source said Thursday afternoon. But it's unclear if the Astros will budge from the reported 6 years and $156 million offer that was presented. Rome added a couple of other things. Chandler Rome said, well, there's the first luxury tax threshold, and the Astros really don't want to cross over too far. He also points out that in his, even though the Astros spent a lot of money, Jim Crane, in the years that he's owned the Astros, he's never handed out a $100 million deal to a player. And the reported offer might just be the best one that Bregman gets with 6 years. So it's up to Crane, really. But I bet you if Crane was willing to crack that $100 million barrier, hard for me to speculate being an outsider. I'm not involved in negotiations. No, really, I'm not. I'm just kidding. Maybe Bregman would jump at it. So all we can do is wait and see what transpires. But there seems to be a spark of interest, maybe more of a spark of interest between the Astros and Bregman, and maybe some overtures have been made. So what happens if the Astros do bring Bregman back? Well, let's switch to Boston. Bregman would still be great for the Red Sox, but if they don't get him, then a trade for Nolan Arenado probably would take a higher priority or maybe more urgency. The Red Sox are obviously interested in him. It's just a matter of how much they're willing to give the Cardinals and how much the Cardinals are willing to pay to defray the cost of his contract. And I've got some information or some speculation on that. But I was reading a couple of pieces. One comes from Nesson, which is the Red Sox TV network in Boston. It's the sports network in Boston. They have really good reporters who actually do writing and things. It's really good. So Nesson said, quote, Arenado would finally fulfill the right-handed bat void the Red Sox have spent the winter looking for. They need to be aggressive to fulfill that need before spring training begins in under a month. So that doesn't mean they're going to sign him, but I think we all would agree that if Bregman goes back to Houston, I think the Red Sox move up. They move up, and they, for the most part, even with Bregman out there, the Red Sox have been up here as the team most likely to make a trade for Arenado. And of course, he has already approved that he would go there. Like, he's not going to veto that move. He'd be delighted. Red Sox, because of the work Chaim Bloom did in drafting and the development system that he put in, the Red Sox are loaded. I mean, loaded with young talent. It's amazing how much premium young talent they have. They've also, because of some of the work Chaim Bloom did, they've also developed young pitching, which they have not done historically very well. So they are primed for, over the next 3 years, to be a serious contender, not only in the American League East, but to get back in the playoffs and make some noise. And I think the owner, John Henry, is pretty desperate for that. You look at how impatient he was when he sacked Chaim Bloom, in effect blaming Bloom because he, John Henry, ordered Bloom to trade Mookie Betts. I was watching a Baseball America YouTube, what's actually a podcast last night, and the two guys who are really well informed, really, really smart, they were actually discussing the Cardinals farm system, but they were talking about how good Chaim Bloom would be for that, because they're looking at this loaded group of elite talent, young talent that's already started to graduate and more are on the way. And they were just saying, Chaim Bloom did everything that he was asked to do by John Henry, the owner, and he did it very, very, very well. And as I've said many times, and some of you, for whatever, dispute this, I have no idea why, but whatever, man. As I've learned, facts don't matter to some people. That's all right. This is America in 2025, right? Okay. Um, these two guys who are plugged into the minor leagues, plugged into prospects, plugged into front offices everywhere, they're saying like Red Sox fans, to this day, blame Bloom for trading Mookie Betts. The owner ordered him to trade Mookie Betts. They hired him to rebuild the farm system and to come up with a better way to draft players and to develop the players. He's done that. But John Henry couldn't fire himself, I guess, because he owns a team and all. So he had to scapegoat Chaim Bloom. But part of it is because the Red Sox weren't going forward with the team that Bloom inherited, minus Mookie Betts. And so he got all impatient because he don't like to be ripped by Red Sox fans, overly sensitive to that. So he's just like, well, Bloom did some really good things. It looks like our minor leagues are going to come of age and we're going to have some really good players, but we got to have more urgency now. Well, you could, hey, Mr. Henry, you could have told Chaim Bloom that at the time, right? You said, look, man, we want some trades made. Okay, good. Maybe trades that would bring in talent. How's that? Yeah. Those are the kind Bloom, in effect, whatever. I'm rehashing this for no reason. Well, it's actually relevant, but you know what I'm saying. So the Red Sox are set up very nicely, and they're willing to spend money, and they're willing, as it appears to be the case, to be very aggressive. They've had an aggressive offseason. So you have a situation where, given the urgency and ownership, and given the fact that some of Bloom's excellent work is going to start to pay off, it already is, but even in a bigger way, the Red Sox have a chance to be the Red Sox again. They have kind of like fallen off in recent seasons. So Arenado would fit the Red Sox. And I'm not going to rehash all the stuff about how people assume he would do, oh my God, you put him in Fenway, he'll hit 33 home runs again, or this or that. And actually all the research indicates that's not true. Fenway Park, it used to be a time where Fenway Park was a right-handed hitter's paradise. The park doesn't play that it doesn't play the same. It's still a pretty good hitter's park, obviously, but it doesn't really play as well as it did for right-handed hitters. But that's neither here nor there. It would be a good spot for Arenado to land. Now, I don't know what the Cardinals are willing to pay, how much of the tab they're going to pick up for his salary. I don't know, because that's certainly going to be a factor. I don't know what the Red Sox are willing to offer the Cardinals in terms of a prospect or two to get it done if it gets to that stage. I do know this. If we're talking prospects, many of you have pointed out, if we're talking Red Sox prospects, if the Cardinals are in a position to land a good prospect or two, I'm not saying they are, I don't know. But if the Red Sox have the urgency to get this thing done, who would you want sitting in St. Louis? Or maybe he's down in Jupiter already. Who would you want sitting at a desk for the Cardinals in the front office other than Chaim Bloom? Because he has vast knowledge of all of their prospects because he drafted most of them and many of them. So he would actually be the ideal expert in saying, no, you don't want this guy. Ask for this guy, that type of thing, right? We understand each other, right? So if Bregman goes back to Houston, and again, it's a big if, but if he does, then I think Arenado and the Cardinals are back in play with Boston, and I think it might be kind of more like, okay, let's make our push here. Let's get this done. If we're interested in this, let's find a way to get this done. I mean, I hope that's the situation for Arenado and the Cardinals and the Red Sox as well. I don't have anything against Arenado. I mean, I know that if he's back, it's awkward. And I know the Cardinals can't play Gorman at second base. And because Gorman would have to go back to second base, might mean Thomas Saggese he might not be a factor early in the season. He might not get the playing time. They would have a lot of infielders. They'd move Brendan Donovan to left field, let him play more there. Maybe that means they trade someone else. We talked about Burleson. Some of you thought that I was saying get rid of Burleson in yesterday's video. I was not. I was saying that John Mozeliak hinted that he may trade, it'd be interested in trading a position player. I was just trying to figure out, well, who that might be. That's all. There's a difference between that. Well, here's a reason why Burleson might be the guy. There's a big difference between that than me sitting here saying, damn it, trade Burleson now, which I didn't come close to saying. But I got an impression, some people thought maybe I was just like dogging on Burleson. No, just offering a honest assessment of like things that he's good at, things that he's bad at, things that limit him. The fact that there's outfielders on the way in their system, and there's going to be a log jam there soon. That kind of thing. That's all. I like Burley, man. I used to defend Burley when everybody else was ripping him. But I'm just saying, if we're trying to identify a trade candidate because of John Mozeliak putting out there that he'd be willing to trade, consider trading a position player, I think Burleson's a candidate. That's all. So then let's go to ESPN, because this stuff is just fun more than anything. But it is awkward if Arenado comes back, but it doesn't mean that he should be demonized because he vetoed that Astros trade. And it's not his fault that the Cardinals zoomed off in a different direction. And I don't hold it against him because Wilson Contreras and Sonny Gray, they have no trade clauses. And they said, no, we want to be Cardinals. We want to see this through. We like it here. We like this challenge. I wouldn't hold it against, I don't know how many people are. I have no idea. I personally would not hold it against Nolan Arenado for when the Cardinals approached him, they wanted an honest answer. He didn't call the Cardinals up, or he didn't have his agent call the Cardinals up and say, trade me, trade him. We want you to trade him. The Cardinals called Arenado's agent, and they called Arenado. And they explained the situation as they did to Contreras and as they did to Sonny Gray. And Arenado said, which I think was the right answer, he said, well, I don't hate it here. I love playing ball in St. Louis. The Cardinals are, I really wanted to come here. It's not like I'm dying to get out of here but yeah, if you're willing to look around, maybe if there's something that's interests me, and obviously he's got the final say, and his agent said, well, yeah, he wants to play for a team that's got a chance to win perhaps sooner than the Cardinals. I just don't think Arenado should be besmirched for that. He's handling it the way he should have handled it, I should say. If he comes back, I would hope for some things, and we'll get into that if in fact he comes back. But I just wanted to throw that in there. I got no problem with anything that Nolan Arenado has done this off season. If you don't want a player to tell you, yeah, I'm open to the idea of a trade, see what's out there. Well, if you don't want a player to say that, well, don't get in touch with the player and ask the question, right? But obviously the Cardinals were interested in moving him, or Contreras or Gray. Two said, no, we want to stay for sure. Arenado's kind of like, well, what's out there? Yeah, perfectly fine, considering that he could have opted out twice and left the Cardinals, but chose to stay. I mean, he could have left the Cardinals at a time when he had peak value, and that would have been a pretty big deal in St. Louis. That would have been a really big deal with the Cardinals organization. And it would have been at that time, we couldn't see how quickly he would decline offensively. But at that time, finished third in the MVP race in the National League, led the National League in WAR, had a career best season if you neutralize the ballpark effect compared to Coors. If he would have bolted then, you say, well, he did have the right to go, but this kind of stinks, that kind of thing. But he stayed. And, he probably could have gone out and got a rework contract or a contract extension. He could have cashed in because he becomes a free agent. Then it's his whole contract If he opts out, he's a free agent again, and then anybody can bid on him. I mean, Arenado would have really worked out well given the timing of his opt out. But he didn't flee. He wanted to stay. So that's my point in saying, like, listen, man, I don't know if anybody's really hating on him. I don't know. But I'm just telling you how I feel. I got no reason to hate on him. I do question if he comes back whether he'll be as happy as he should be, as energized as he should be. Will he try to take a more proactive leadership role? Those things like that. Those are legitimate questions. And that ain't hating on him. These are legitimate questions. So anyway, ESPN made some predictions about some of the unsettled business of this offseason. And David Schoenfield, my friend there at ESPN.com, he still says Alex Bregman's going to get traded, but he said to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Sort of like what I was saying earlier. Like, we never know about those Dodgers. They'll spend anything, right? Bradford Doolittle, native St. Louis, and said his prediction, not a report, his prediction, Bregman will sign with the Detroit Tigers, which makes sense if the Tigers offer enough money. All right, let's go to the Arenado section. My friend Jesse Rogers in Chicago, who's a good reporter, his prediction is the Boston Red Sox will trade for Nolan Arenado. And let me read you what Jesse Rogers had to say. Quote, after exhausting attempts to sign Bregman, the Red Sox pivot to Arenado as the St. Louis Cardinals start to exhibit a bit of desperation with the season approaching. The fit in St. Louis just isn't right anymore, and everyone knows it. The Cardinals aren't concerned with the money owed to Arenado, so they're willing to pick up a portion of it because they want quality prospects in return, and Boston can deliver that. Listen, I got immense respect for Jesse. I also like him a lot. The only thing I would quibble with is the Cardinals aren't concerned with money owed to Arenado. I think they are, because they've asked other teams, well, we'll go this far and that's it. They've told other teams, I should say. But I agree, he says willing to pick up a portion. But what are we talking about? Are we talking 20%? Are we talking 15%? Are we talking 33%, 50%? How much? I don't know. Because I don't think they're going to get quality prospects in return unless the Cardinals are willing to send a lot of money to Boston with Arenado to reduce Boston's guaranteed money obligation in salary to Arenado. I mean, the more money, more of that salary, the Arenado salary that the Cardinals are willing to digest and take care of, the higher they go with that number, yeah, we'll pay you this. The higher they go with that, the better the quality of the prospect or prospects that would come back to St. Louis. So it's a sliding scale. And it's kind of silly that, to like sit here and say, oh, they could get this guy, they could get that guy. I'm sure there's been like 10 blogs written already by this, all the people out there, like, as soon as there's a whiff of anything, 10,000 trade proposals. No, thank you. It's already enough clutter on the World Wide Web. So Jesse Rogers says, Red Sox will trade for Arenado. It's a distinct possibility. But his colleague, Eric Karabell, says Arenado will be traded to the Seattle Mariners. Quote, the Cardinals have made it clear they must move on from Arenado to install Nolan Gorman at third base. We heard rumors of the Red Sox, Blue Jays, and other teams that are interested. We haven't heard about the Mariners, but all they have done this offseason is sign a utility man, Donovan Solano. The Arenado of old might never return, at the plate at least, but the Cardinals seemed so desperate. Watch them handle the bulk of his contract and leave Mariners GM Jerry DePito with little choice. Arenado's coming off one of his worst seasons. It's actually his worst season, okay? But this Mariners lineup could use even league average hitters at this point. Number one, that scenario makes sense to a point. Here we go again. Would Arenado be willing to go to Seattle? That place is Death Valley for right-handed hitters that have some power. That is not a good yard for him to be in. In fact, if you give me a moment, I will look this up to make sure I have this updated. I wish I could play some music for you, maybe the Jeopardy music. Hold on. My bad, as always. I forgot to look this up. And momentarily, I will be there. I got a bad keyboard. Anybody know how to fix a keyboard or replace it? It's always something, man. All right, here we go. Nolan Arenado, if you go by last year, he hit 16 home runs in St. Louis. In Seattle, let's see, here we are. In Seattle, that would have been even lower. It would have been 14 home runs on the season. Like in 2023, Arenado hit 26 home runs, but the total would have been lower had he played his home games in Seattle. 2022, the ballpark played better that year out in Seattle. I don't know why, but the point is, I don't mean to ramble, and I apologize. The point is, that's not exactly a hitter's yard, and I think the Mariners are pretty good, but they don't do enough to improve their team. And didn't Arenado just go through that in St. Louis? They're very placid organization. They're not aggressive at all, but they have a lot of great young pitching, and maybe Arenado could help him out. But really, it's up to Arenado. And I tell you what, if Seattle really goes for him, if they do, then it'll be interesting to see what Arenado says. Like, no, that's not a good place for me. It just doesn't fit. That's a tough place to hit. Or he takes he says, well, they got all that great young pitching, and why not? But I have no idea what he's going to do. Anyway, I just wanted to present some information. It's kind of fun to talk about, but it looks like, if Bregman's going to go back to Houston, then hey, we can maybe start some real talk about Arenado going to the Red Sox. Thank you very much. I'll be back later with something else. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.